Welcome back to the show. We got another great one lined up. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. Make sure you follow us in the Freedom Zone today, ladies and gentlemen. You can click the join button under any title of my video on YouTube. Get every daily video with zero Google ads, ladies and gentlemen. I love it. And you could join us in the Patreon or YouTube. Same price, same perks. All your daily videos with zero Google ads and extra content. And today we're getting into the next 3 crisis emergencies in the next 5 years, as well as the fallout of digital asset technology. You need to know it. Let's look right here. $2.84 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency. The market is up 1.4%. Bitcoin now is sitting at 87,000 plus. We see Ethereum 1,600 plus. XRP number 4 spot, $2.11. We're up 3% in the last 24, like the rest of the top two. And we're off 2.1 on the 7-day. Looking at the range of price very quickly here, ranging between 205 and 214. We'll keep an eye on it. I do want to tell you, I believe with legislation coming, now is the time for you to go to xrpwealth589.com. xrpwealth589.com. Here you're going to find out that Digital Asset Investor and myself have come together with Caleb and Brown because they are offering institutional grade custody to retail folks just like you and I. And also, you get a human representative that you can pick up the phone, call, and talk to about any questions you have, whether it's your account, the way you set market orders, fear of being hacked. I tell you, this is a remarkable game changer right here. And shout out to Caleb and Brown for bringing those traditional customer service level to all of us in the digital asset space. Don't mess around. This will be something you're going to want before the markets take off again, because most exchanges freeze up and you can't get out. But you know what? You could set your orders with a human representative and make sure it happens on Caleb and Brown. GameStop likely to buy $5 billion in Bitcoin this week. It's happening. Well, you know what? They're not the only ones. Corporates are starting to take a look at digital assets from Bitcoin right on down the line, and I think it only gets bigger from here. Charles Schwab Corporation, we covered late last weekend, managing over 10 trillion in assets and serving 37 million customers, has announced plans to launch a spot Bitcoin and crypto trading services in the next 12 months. And I have a feeling it may come a lot sooner, probably right around the time we see the legislation passed inside. That'd be my guess. Hidden Road, recently acquired by Ripple Labs, has just gotten approval for a FINRA license. Now, we covered this, but I want to make sure everybody who's not watching the channel every day understands that this is a big deal, because the license they got from FINRA opens up Hidden Road to global credit network for institutions. This is a massive deal. FINRA license now makes Hidden Road an official registered broker-dealer globally. Yeah, how about that one? Right on time for legislation, isn't it? Here's Cassie Craddock, who's going to break it down. Ripple's managing director over in the UK, EU, I believe. Take a listen to what she has to say.
We'll use RLUSD as collateral. Then that's essentially enabling the bridging of the digital asset space to TradFi, which is extremely exciting. Also, the XRP ledger will be used as a post-trade for all of Hidden Road's prime brokerage services. We also see that this captive audience of 300 institutional customers is a really interesting portfolio of customers that will and do need digital asset infrastructure, which these customers will be able to take advantage of our payment and custody solutions as well. We'll use RLUSD.
There you go. It's all happening, ladies and gentlemen. That's $3 trillion a year that Cassie is explaining to everyone, that's going to be touch point to the XRP ledger and real USD, and certainly XRP where applicable. This is getting Very exciting. And as Cassie said, this is where TradFi, traditional finance, is first touching this digital asset space. And it's just fitting that it be Ripple. Now, here's an old clip from 4 years ago of Jerome Powell talking about how quickly global stablecoins could become systemically important. Do tell us, Jerome.
I would say since it's possible and private sector is already kind of doing it, I think this is something we need to take very, very seriously.
But to make sure that private sector is moving ahead, not spilling over and creating some risks for the Fed to have to step in ex post, I guess.
Yes, there's clearly a need for, and we've been very focused, as you know, on better regulatory answers for potential global stablecoins in particular. So that's been a high level focus, and that will continue to be a high level focus because they could become systemically important overnight.
There you have it. He said it. He said it 4 years ago. Now we're actually living in the moment where I believe it could happen during this administration. Now, I'm going to go back on you where Ashish Birla said this. How powerful is this now to hear again?
The government seems to be also waking up to this notion that, hey, listen, we need to get moving here on creating proper regulation. There's also a lot of regulation, at least talk, around the stablecoin aspect of it. And how great would it be if every bank in the United States issued a stablecoin on a blockchain? Now that would connect it to real world society and solve real world problems.
It sure would. And boy, is Ashish one smart fella. He's called that from way back in 2022. And now what do we hear? Bank of America says they're prepared to launch a stable coin should they get the legislation. And every other bank will do it too. Right? FedNow, new payment network launching can be the start of building large domestic liquidity pools to support massive cross-border payments. That's exactly right. Allowing private issuers of stablecoins to be highly regulated allows us to switch from the petrodollar agreement that elevates the national currency of the US dollar as a world reserve currency. You can change that metric and go to private issuance, and that can become the new metric of dominance that gives the US dollar the elevation that it needs as a world reserve currency, as a stable coin, because the private issuers will have to hold the bonds to make sure that that digital stable coin is a one-to-one. So no matter how much the dollar may go down because of tariffs and negotiations and getting the government out of the economy, the bureaucracy out of the economy, and getting the companies and the economy running without government intervention as much as possible, this is the goal. This is the goal. And the way to do that is to issue these stable coins, so this way you can make sure you deal with any issue of inflation or hyperinflation with the US dollar. Well, it's getting very real, ladies and gentlemen. Check this out from Michael Arrington here. This was this morning, just a couple hours ago here, with the caveat that I can't tell real news from fake news anymore, but likely a natural consequence of betting Russia from SWIFT as a sanction. He says here, the dollar just lost a round in the global currency war. While the West was sleeping, China's CIPS platform cleared more cross-border payments than SWIFT. April 16th may be remembered as the day that the tide turned. For the first time, China's CIPS cross-border interbank settlement payment system surpassed SWIFT in a single-day transaction volume. A red banner flashed across the Bank of China's HQ at 1:30 a.m. on April 16, 2025. CIPS processed a jaw-dropping 12.8 trillion renminbi in just one day, roughly 1.76 trillion USD. That volume, if verified, overtakes the greenback-dominated SWIFT system in sheer daily cross-border throughput. You get the rest of it. But this just isn't a blip. One supplemental channel, piggyback on SWIFT, now stands on its own as a serious challenger. It was designed for renminbi, but has grown into a full stack global clearing alternative. That's what I've told you, ladies and gentlemen. There is no choice. It's just as we heard Greg Kidd say when we interviewed him on the channel, and he's going to be on stage at XRP Las Vegas too. Get your tickets, xrplasvegas.com. Think of this for a moment. The world and the United States doesn't have the option to sit on the sidelines. Well, they do, but it'll be at the cost of losing the world reserve currency status to sit on the sideline, and they're not going to do that, certainly not this administration. I said, sounds like a job for Ripple and the XRP ledger to me. If you introduce the XRP ledger and XRP is a bridge asset, and understand that the true native assets for adoption, in the conversation of adoption, the true native assets are not the XRP token. The XRP token is obviously the native bridge asset for the ledger. But if you're looking to understand how adoption works, the way to think of it is not that XRP is the native currency of the ledger. If you really want to think about adoption, you need to understand that stablecoins, CBDCs, tokenized stocks and bonds, all of the other instruments are the native tokens for the XRP ledger. It's that XRP serves as a native bridge currency for those assets. That's the only way to really understand it, in my eyes, to where you really understand how the world would want to adopt it, because you're not forcing XRP on them for everything other than the gas to be on the network, which is highly affordable. So this seems like a perfect scenario here brewing that could take us to that moment. Interestingly enough here, back in January, Eric Van Miltenburg in Davos said this. Take a listen.
And it's been a journey, right? Initially, I remember being in meetings 4, 5, 6 years ago with a large bank where their team would be with the executive team, and their team would prep us and say, don't say Bitcoin, don't say digital asset, they'll kick you out. And to see the evolution has been dramatic. Initially, we really were providing infrastructure in the form of a messaging product, kind of a swift update or replacement. Since we really...
A swift update or replacement.
We're providing infrastructure in the form of a messaging product, kind of a swift update or replacement.
I love that. And I love that he shared it as update or replacement, right? Because, look, it could go either way, right? I mean, they're leaving the door open here for however it needs to go, right? What's interesting to me is they may already know how it's going to go, and they're using that language so you and I can't know how it's going to go until it goes down. If you've ever been in business, you know to speak in a certain way so others cannot know what you're about to do. And one of the smartest things in business is to never broadcast what exactly you're going to do. And Ripple is brilliant at that. Here's a reminder right here. 2025 Faster Payments Task Force presentation identifies Ripple and Stellar as strategic fintech partners driving the modernization of U.S. domestic payments. And now the task force is getting set for their spring meeting in April 23, which is just 2 days away. But going into this here, you can go in, shout out to Smoke Dog for all of this. You can see he's got it laid out right here. And I know you might have trouble seeing this, but I'll read it. Promote inter-industry collaboration. Partner with fintechs and startups innovating in cross-border payments, such as RippleNet and Stellar. Remember this from back in the day? There was other influencers. We showed it so much, they were like, stop showing this diagram. Right? Remember that? Those people are absolutely on the wrong side of history. They have spent so many years telling all of us we were wrong, when in fact, we were so right, I think some of us didn't know how right we were. That's how right we are today. This diagram illustrates the major payment systems in massive regions around the world. And then it shows what? XRP ledger in between. The adoption time window given here, 2020 to 2025. And obviously we're in 25. What's interesting to me is when you look over on this side, and I remember when we first saw this diagram, 2017, 2018, when it came out, whatever it was. And I remember when I saw it, how far away it felt like to think that Microsoft and Google and Facebook and Amazon and Apple Pay, and PayPal and all the rest of them would participate, because you know that's where it touches the end user, the consumer. And that's where the adoption usually takes longer. And I've always felt like the wholesale back end, like the payment systems for countries and regions, would be a much faster adoption because it could be done in a wholesale manner. But what's interesting is, remember what Charles Hoskinson just said just a couple days ago?
The new laws that are being passed, like the market structure bill and the stablecoin bill in the United States, and where MiCA is solidifying, what's going to end up happening is the big guys, the Magnificent Seven, are going to come into crypto, and that's going to bring 3 billion users into crypto. You're going to have cryptocurrency wallet in your Android phone. You're going to have a cryptocurrency wallet in your iPhone. You're going to have a cryptocurrency wallet Windows, and they're going to be using stablecoins. It's not because Papa Satya over at Microsoft is like, boy, I love crypto. It's he hates paying fees. If you're Microsoft, you got people in 150 countries, and you hate some local bank in Bangladesh or Pakistan or someplace charges you 5% here or 10% here. You want to get rid of that whole thing. So why not pay them in stablecoins, Windows to Windows, and you're your own bank. Plus, if they're issuing that token, they could wake up just like Tether does and get $20, $30 billion a year in yield from treasury bills.
There you have it. I'd say that this diagram's pretty accurate, and it's taking shape right on time. How about that one? One of the first things listed on Donald Trump's post yesterday about non-tariff cheating is currency manipulation. And I say, as we fall in line with getting these tariff deals done, resetting the world to move it onto a new digital on-chain economy, I say we are staring down the barrel of a new Bretton Woods, a Mar-a-Lago Accords headed our way. Just like a Plaza Accords, if you don't know, that was done back in the day when they devalued the dollar to take the pressure and stress off of other countries like Japan and Germany and others. I think a moment like that is headed our way. Then we see this from Coin Bureau, breaking: crypto giants Circle, BitGo, Coinbase, and Paxos are looking to apply for bank charters licenses to offer deposit and loan services, just like regular banks. Now you know why Elizabeth Warren and so many others were beating this space up for so long, because the banks didn't want this day to come. But this day is here. And this day, I believe, looks a lot like what Scott Bessent says right here.
Some kind of a grand global economic reordering. There's something on the equivalent of a new Bretton Woods, or if you want to go back, like something back to the Steel Agreements or the Treaty of Versailles. There's a very good chance that we are going to have to have that over the next 4 years, and I'd like to be a part of it. I've studied this. I think it's kind of a unique skill set.
It is a unique skill set. It's not often that you have a new monetary reset and the introduction of a new monetary infrastructure, which I believe the XRP ledger will play a massive role. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. We're going into the freedom zone, and as I said, the next 3 crisis emergencies in the next 5 years, as well as the downside to this new digital world that we're moving into, you're going to see it in real time. I hope you will join us. Click the join button, go to Patreon, or just click the join button underneath the YouTube title, and come on in. All right, welcome back.